Stormrunner is now everyone's favorite hydraulic launch coaster on the East Coast. But with the closure of Kingda Ka and Top Thrill Dragster turning into Top Thrill 2, the hydraulic launch is slowly becoming a rarity, with only 3 remaining in the United States. The last hydraulic launch coaster was built in 2010, with Formula Rossa, the fastest in the world. Top Thrill 2 and Thundervolt had their hydraulic launches converted into magnetic launches, and Kingda Ka was sadly demolished. Will Stormrunner be changed in the coming years? Let's look at 3 different options for what Hersheypark could do to Stormrunner, if they'll choose to save it, demolish it, and what roller coaster could take its place. My name is Christian G. Coasters, and today I will be analyzing Stormrunner at Hersheypark to see what could happen with its future. Before we get into talking about Stormrunner, if you enjoy my content, be sure to like and subscribe. It means a lot and helps out the channel a lot. Stormrunner is an Intamin manufactured hydraulic launch coaster that opened on May 8th, 2004. It was the 3rd Intamin accelerator to open after Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm and Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Stormrunner was the first hydraulic launch coaster to feature inversions, and its layout utilizes Hersheypark's terrain in the Pioneer Frontier section. With a height of only 150 feet, it has a much larger drop of 180 feet going down the valley and then into the Cobra Loop. It features the first ever flying snake dive, climbing back up the hill in a twister section to the brake run. Hydraulic launches were revolutionary at the time because they solved a very important problem. Other launch coasters at the time used magnetic launches, and these magnetic launches took a lot of electrical power to propel the trains each time it launched. And this would even affect the local power grids because of the instantaneous use of electricity. This led Intamin to making a launch system that used a hydraulic motor which pulled the trains with a cable and a catch car instead of using stationary electromagnets. Not only did it need less instantaneous power, but it could accelerate trains faster, and it led to the tallest and fastest coasters at the time. However, hydraulic launches are very complex, and they use a lot of different sensors for the brake fins. There's just a lot of moving parts with the cable and the catch car, and this leads to some downtime and maintenance issues, especially on larger coasters like Top Thrill Dragster and Kingda Ka. Now, with advancements in modern-day magnetic launch technology, manufacturers have found ways to effectively store the power so there's no more problems with the power grids. LSMs are a better launch technology because of their reliability, and they're used today with every major roller coaster manufacturer. The main downside to LSMs is that they do not accelerate as fast as hydraulic launches, and some enthusiasts actually prefer the hydraulic launches because they're a little more powerful. With how reliable LSM launches are, it's definitely worth it to have a slower accelerating ride that is open a lot more than a hydraulic launch. But the big issue is when converting a hydraulic launch coaster into a LSM launch coaster. Oftentimes, hydraulic launches have a shorter track length since it takes a short amount of track to reach the top speed. Senza Fiato was relocated to Playland and renamed Thundervolt in 2024. It had its hydraulic launch removed and replaced with a single LSM launch, and also was replaced trains by Zamperla. Top Thrill Dragster also had its launch swapped with Zamperla trains and LSM launch, except to reach the necessary speed, Cedar Point made it a swing launch, and Kingda Ka had its hydraulic launch completely removed. Actually, the whole ride was removed. Another factor to consider is the length of a roller coaster train. A lot of LSM coasters use either 3 or 4 car trains, which are lighter and easier to get to the max speed with less electrical power. But since Top Thrill 2 has a 5-car train, this could be another reason why they decided to use 3 launches to get to the appropriate speed. Stormrunner currently has a 5-car train, so that is a little bit longer than the typical 3 or 4-car trains on Intamin LSM coasters. Another thing to note is that hydraulic launches do not use the entire straight track to accelerate the trains. At the end of the launch are brake fins for the catch car to slow it down. So Stormrunner only accelerates until this point. After that, you're just coasting the rest of the straight track. Stormrunner's hydraulic launch is a lot more reliable than Kingda Ka's, mainly because of its lower launch speed. The advertised speed is 0 to 72 miles per hour in 2 seconds, but I don't think this is accurate. When I recreated the ride in No Limits 2, I found that a 65 mile per hour launch reaches the necessary speed to make it over a 150-foot top hat with safe G-forces. If Stormrunner actually had a 72 mile per hour launch, the forces would be deadly. And also the max speed would be 78 miles per hour, making it the fastest roller coaster in the park. Let's actually measure the speed of the real ride using this off-ride footage. We will measure its speed using this reference post, and we will time how long it takes for the train to pass this point. The train is 34 feet long, and the time it takes for the whole train to pass this point is 0.38 seconds. So this means it's traveling at 89 feet per second or 60 miles per hour. This would make sense because it is a full train, so it doesn't have to launch as fast to have enough momentum to make it through the course. So it seems like what I found in the roller coaster software is actually accurate. It does not actually launch at 72 miles per hour, so shame on you, Hersheypark. It seems that the advertised speed of Stormrunner's launch has the same issue as Kingda Ka's and Dragster's, where it is actually not as fast as advertised. Check out El Toro Ryan's video on Kingda Ka's launch speed. Using this background information, I see 3 possible outcomes for Stormrunner. Either replace the hydraulic launch with a single LSM launch, adding 2 LSM launches, or demolishing the coaster and replacing it with something new. Another option you might be thinking of is adding a swing launch like Top Thrill 2, but I don't really think this is possible. Stormrunner is sandwiched between Jolly Rancher Remix, Trailblazer, and a lot of pathways, but I think a single LSM launch could be powerful enough to reach the necessary top speed of 65 miles an hour. Nefeskesen has a launch of 68 miles per hour, and the track length is 217 feet long. Stormrunner's launch track is 223 feet long. And also, LSMs are able to go up curved sections of track. So I feel pretty confident that Hersheypark could replace the hydraulic launch with a single LSM launch. Now, if there is a chance that a single launch is not sufficient, I got creative and found a place Hersheypark could squeeze a second LSM launch and extend Stormrunner's layout. If Hersheypark turned the current dual loading station into one side for loading and the other for unloading, and added turnaround connecting the two, a first launch could be added here. Then the layout could be extended along the road by the Trailblazer area, giving more speed into the second launch to complete the rest of the original Stormrunner layout. One important aspect I added to this extended layout was to make sure that there was a drop into the second launch. Because with LSM launches, if it does roll back, it will have to do a backwards launch first to make sure it has enough speed to swing into the second launch. Sort of like Velocicoaster when it needs to recover its second launch. Now, on the off chance that Hersheypark decided to close and demolish Stormrunner, what ride could replace it? I definitely think it would need to be replaced with another launch coaster because Stormrunner's the only launch coaster at Hersheypark. I think a new style of Vekoma would be pretty cool, but it seems really similar to Stormrunner, so I think the park would want to do something different. I think it'd be really nice if they went with a B&M wing launch coaster. This ride would look and feel fundamentally different than Stormrunner with a new seating arrangement, and it would still give the park the launch coaster that they would need. Skyrush is technically a wing coaster too, but I think the B&M wing coasters are totally different and is completely winged. You can't sit in the middle like on Skyrush. Also, Hersheypark worked with B&M in 2020 with Candymonium, so they have a history working with B&M, so I see them as a likely option. This example layout I designed would be the tallest, fastest, and longest launch wing coaster in the world. With floaty inversions and a sprawling layout, this coaster would be a great fit for Hersheypark. Plus, this would be the first wing coaster in Pennsylvania, making it unique for the area. Unless you count Skyrush, I guess. But this would be a fully wing coaster, and it also goes upside down, so it's a much different experience. So going through these 3 options, I really think the most likely one is that they replace the hydraulic launch with a single LSM launch. This could be done by Intamin or Zamperla. Hersheypark has a history with Intamin rides, although they haven't built one since 2012. They did replace Skyrush's trains recently. I also think going with Intamin would keep the ride system familiar for the maintenance team and for ride operators. The second most likely option is replacing Stormrunner with another launch coaster. I don't think this will happen anytime soon because Stormrunner's still running great. It's really popular. It doesn't have as many issues as Kingda Ka did, so I really don't see it meeting that same fate. Although new hydraulic launch coasters are no longer being produced by Intamin, they are still making replacement parts. In 2020, Stormrunner received a new launch cable, and Hersheypark really does have a history of maintaining their rides well. They always make upgrades to keep the ride's longevity. So I think this ride has a lot of time left, but eventually it will reach the end of its service life. And at that point, I think Hersheypark could be interested in making a brand new roller coaster. But with Stormrunner's popularity, I like to think that they want to keep it around and just replace the hydraulic launch with a LSM launch. If Hersheypark decides to extend the layout, I definitely see Intamin doing this. Although this concept is definitely the least likely option because extending the layout in this area is really difficult with construction around the Dry Gulch Railroad, Trailblazer, and the monorail. Also, even though Stormrunner is a short ride, I think the layout works as is. And so if the layout isn't broken, then why try to fix it? I don't think Hersheypark will decide to re-theme the ride, but who knows? Hersheypark is now kind of deciding to theme their rides to different candy products. So maybe they'll theme it to Zagnuts or something. It's hard to tell if it will ever get a retheme. I really think Stormrunner was the perfect candidate for a Twizzlers theme, but now that's out of the question with Twizzlers Twisted Gravity. I think if they went with the wing coaster option, it would be really cool to name it Flying Falcon to pay tribute to the Flying Falcon ride. And also that would really fit the Pioneer Frontier section of the park. But honestly, the most likely option is it will just stay Stormrunner. And now for one final concept. If Hersheypark decided to remove Stormrunner, Trailblazer, and Jolly Rancher Remix, they could replace all three rides with rebuilding Wildcat. So in conclusion, I see Stormrunner's hydraulic launch staying for many years to come. I think there could be a point where Hersheypark decides to replace it with an LSM launch to improve maintenance and reliability. As cool as a layout extension is, I don't think a second launch is necessary to reach the top speed. The wing coaster concept is also cool, but unless there's a serious maintenance or cost benefit to completely replace Stormrunner, I don't really see this happening. So, which concept was your favorite? Do you think Hersheypark will change Stormrunner at all? I would love to read through your comments, and be sure to like and subscribe for future content from Christian G Coasters.